Hello, and welcome to this news event sponsored by the law firm Piper Wolf, Carr, Kane, and Conway, or Piper Wolf for short. You'll be hearing from three speakers today, and then we'll open the floor for questions during the Q&A period. The Q&A period will be for reporters only. If you wish to ask a question, use the raise your hand function, and your line will be unmuted when it's your turn to ask a question. For more info, go to lostembryos.com, where you can find the news release, a link to the lawsuit filing, as well as a short video. And we're also going to drop a direct link into the news release in the chat window shortly. As I mentioned, you'll be hearing from three speakers today. First, Adam Wolf, partner, Piper Wolf, Carr, Kane, and Conway. Second, Daphna Cardinale, Los Angeles area mother who was unknowingly implanted with a stranger's embryo. And third, Alexander Cardinale, Daphna's husband. Let's go to our first speaker, attorney Adam Wolf, partner, Piper Wolf, Carr, Kane, and Conway. Go ahead.
Thank you, Max. Good morning. Welcome to this news conference. My name is Adam Wolf. I'm an attorney with Piper Wolf, Carr, Kane, and Conway. Before we hear from Daphna and Alexander, I want to go through some of the background. Beginning in the summer of 2018, Daphna and Alexander Cardinale entrusted Dr. Eliran Moore and the California Center for Reproductive Health, or CCRH, with helping them conceive a child, their second, through in vitro fertilization. But the baby daughter who Daphna gave birth to in September 2019 did not share her parents' physical features. In fact, she looks strikingly different, with a starkly different complexion and jet black hair. The Cardinales would soon learn that their trust was violated in a shocking and disastrous manner. Genetic testing revealed that the baby Daphna delivered was not genetically related to her or to her husband, Alexander, but was the biological child of complete strangers. It was months before they learned the truth. They lovingly raised the child as their own, even as they were haunted by doubts. CCRH implanted a stranger's embryo into Daphna, and Daphna became an unwilling and unknowing surrogate for an unknown couple whose child Daphna and Alexander began to bond with, love, and raise as their own. The Cardinales, including their older daughter, fell in love with the baby, and they were terrified she would be taken away from them. At the same time, Daphna and Alexander did not know the whereabouts of their own embryo and were terrified that another woman had been pregnant with their child. Could their child be out in the world somewhere without them? Shockingly, that nightmare ultimately turned out to be reality. In the midst of this emotional turmoil, the Cardinales and the other couple had to resort to the court system to obtain legal custody of their own children. The lawsuit filed today in Los Angeles names four defendants: California Center for Reproductive Health, CCRH, Beverly Sunset Surgical Associates, In Vitro Tech Labs, and Dr. Eliran Moore, medical director of CCRH. Unbeknownst to the Cardinales at the time, Dr. Moore was also the owner of In Vitro Tech Labs, which had a sordid history of allegedly mixing up, labeling, and/or outright losing clients' genetic material. The actions of CCRH, In Vitro Tech Labs, and Dr. Moore are highly disturbing. The fact that Dr. Moore utilized his own lab, beleaguered by a history of misconduct allegations, for the Cardinales' IVF treatment, without their knowledge, makes matters even worse. While it might be hard to believe, fertility disasters are becoming more commonplace. This case highlights an industry in desperate need of regulation. The news release we are circulating today outlines the claims we are making on behalf of the Cardinales against the California Center for Reproductive Health and Dr. Moore, as well as the other defendants. The release links to the lawsuit that was filed today. I should underscore that the Cardinales' nightmare has not ended. It is just beginning. On top of the embryo mix-up itself, Daphna, Alexander, and their older daughter were forced to give up forever the baby Daphna carried to term into whom their whole family had irrevocably bonded. It is heart-shattering and unimaginable. This will live with them for the rest of their lives. In closing, I would like to say that Pfeiffer Wolf, Carr, Kane, and Conway represents hundreds of families in cases involving lost and destroyed embryos. And this is one of the most damaging I have ever seen. Each year, we see more headlines about fertility fraud, embryos and eggs destroyed by freezer malfunctions, and other grave fertility clinic scandals. Meanwhile, the business of assisted reproductive technology is a multi-billion-dollar industry that is booming in the US. But despite the high cost of fertility procedures and the enormous stakes for individuals and couples trying to create families, fertility centers are almost entirely unregulated. Barbershops and nail salons are subject to far tighter state and federal regulation. It's time to demand accountability from big fertility. I give Daphna and Alexander a lot of credit for speaking out today. It's incredibly brave. And our hope is that it will prevent these sorts of incidents from happening in the future. That concludes my opening statement. Thank you very much.
Again, that was Adam Wolf, partner, Pfeiffer Wolf, Carr, Kane, and Conway. And let's proceed to our two main speakers, Daphna and Alexander Cardinale. Daphna, please go ahead.
Good morning. It's not easy to talk about this, but we know how important it is to share our story so that this can never happen again. IVF is an incredibly painful procedure, both physically and emotionally, involving injections, hormone treatments, blood tests, and even surgery. We came to it with incredible vulnerability and trust in our doctor and in the process. We had no idea at the time that this greatest potential for joy would bring us such enduring pain and trauma. In having to push through my own denial to discover the truth of what had happened to our family, I was overwhelmed by feelings of fear, betrayal, anger, and heartbreak. It was torture that shook me to my core and forever changed who I am. I was robbed of the ability to carry my own child. I never had the opportunity to grow and bond with her during pregnancy, to feel her kick, or to watch her in ultrasounds. I had no ability to ensure her health and well-being throughout prenatal and postnatal care. Alexander and I are devastated. We missed an entire year of our daughter's life. I didn't get to experience being pregnant with her or birthing her. We missed her entire newborn period. We never saw our baby's entrance into the world or cuddled her in her first seconds of life. These are moments that parents are supposed to be able to treasure for the rest of their lives. Instead of breastfeeding my own child, I breastfed and bonded with a child I was later forced to give away. I have so many mixed emotions about carrying my birth daughter inside my body. Every time I felt a kick or spoke to her, it was someone else's baby. The heartbreak and confusion cannot be understated. Our memories of childbirth will always be tainted by the sick reality that our biological child was given to someone else, and the baby that I fought to bring into this world was not mine to keep. The daughter we raised and bonded with was gone after months of love and affection. There's no way to describe the pain that we've been through, the struggle to guide our older daughter through losing the little sister she fell in love with, and to understand the reality of what happened. It's been brutal. My heart breaks for her perhaps the most. As this ordeal has taken away everything that feels safe and has shaken her trust in us as parents. We all continue to see mental health professionals for our enduring heartache and trauma. It's now incredibly hard for any of us to trust anyone, and our guard is always up. I hope that no one ever has to suffer what my family has been through. And I hope that CCRH and Dr. Moore see this. I hope they understand the damage that they caused. And most importantly, they need to take responsibility before any other families are hurt. That's the end of my statement.
Thank you, Daphna. Alexander, please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. First, I would like to say how proud I am of my wife, Daphna. This ordeal has been a nightmare. And our entire family has suffered in countless ways. But what my wife has gone through is simply beyond words. The moment our second daughter was born should have been among the happiest of my life. But I immediately felt shaken and confused as to why I didn't recognize her. Falling in love with our new baby and seeing our family of 4 come into focus, while at the same time constantly fighting nagging questions and pushing down dark thoughts of doubt. It was truly my hell. When the truth came to light, it made exchanging the children all the more heartbreaking. Losing the birth child that you know for the genetic child that you don't even know yet. It's a truly impossible nightmare that inflicted trauma that will affect my family for the rest of our lives. It's taken a profound toll on all of us mentally, emotionally, and physically. Sorry. I hope our story will help others. God forbid anyone else is going through a similar situation. But I hope that we're able to give other families out there a voice. If something doesn't seem right, ask questions. We thought that we were working within a very professional industry. We trusted people. We trusted these people. And we never even knew that something like this could happen. It wasn't even on our radar. How could this happen? But now we realize that the fertility industry is a mess. CCRH and Dr. Moore need to be held accountable, and the fertility industry needs to be regulated. I hope that our speaking out today can help prevent this from happening in the future. No one should have to experience what CCRH and Dr. Moore have put us through. Thank you. That concludes my statement.
Again, that was Daphna and Alexander Cardinale. And that takes us to the Q&A portion of the call. If you wish to ask a question, use the raise your hand function and your line will be unmuted when it's your turn to ask a question. As a reminder, the Q&A period is for reporters only. If you have any issues with your own audio or the raise your hand function, you may use the text-based Q&A box and we'll do our best to get to all the questions. And before we begin, I want to mention that a video recording of this news event will be available online later today at lostembryoes.com, along with the other media materials. which include the news release, link to the lawsuit, pictures, and a video. So again, that's lostembryos.com, no spaces. Okay, let's see here. Let's go ahead and take our first question from Haley Smith at the LA Times.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. First of all, so sorry for what you guys are going through. I'm just wondering if maybe you or perhaps your Mr. Wolf can just clarify a little bit how you were able to identify the couple who had given birth to your biological child. Did CCRH help with that, or did you have to do that on your own?
Adam, do you want to do this, or you want us to answer?
Happy to. After Daphna and Alexander got the results of their DNA test, they reached out to the clinic, and the clinic, after a number of weeks where they didn't even tell the Cardinales, where their embryo was, and we're trying to figure it out, leaving the Cardinales in an ever more state of flux and anxiety, finally found out whose embryo was transferred to Daphna, and that Daphna and Alexander's embryo was transferred to another couple.
Got it. Thanks.
Thanks, Haley.
Okay, let's go to our next question from Ann Miller at Insider. Go ahead,
Hi,
Ann.
thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
That was a similar question to what I was going to have. I'd like you to elaborate, if you can, a little bit on what your relationship is like, if at all, with the other couple. If you have any sort of agreements with seeing the child that you gave birth to, or if you've decided that that won't be helpful in your healing.
I can answer this one. Yeah, I can answer this one. So because everybody was losing a child at the same time we were gaining a child, because it was a direct switch. We had their baby and they had our baby. We kind of quickly came to the conclusion that it would be pretty devastating for everyone if we were never able to see our birth children again. So we have done our best to kind of like forge a larger family, so that because the older siblings, this has been the hardest on them. I mean, I can't imagine not seeing her ever again, but for my older daughter,
yeah,
it's not even a question. And they are lovely people, this other family, and they feel the same. So
they were just as much in love with our biological daughter as we were with theirs.
So we've done our best to maintain a really close relationship with them. We've just sort of
which is really hard at first,
Which
with
is
total
really
strangers. It's like, how do you just become family with total strangers?
But like Alexander
did.
said pretty early on, he's like, we're just gonna have to force them to be our family now, because this is a situation we were thrown into, and we are growing to we're getting to know each other better and better, and so we've actually spent because of COVID and all of this, we create our little bubble, and they were our bubble by necessity, because we couldn't not see them. So so we've seen each other for like every holiday, every birthday, everything, as much as we
try to see them a couple times a month if we can.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
let's go to our next question. It's coming from Christine Lazar at CBS.
Hi there. I'm so sorry you guys went through this. I wanted to ask, you mentioned you have an older daughter. Did you use this fertility doctor before, or was this your first time using them to conceive a child?
I'll take that. No, we had our older daughter, Olivia, naturally. She's 7.5.
No, she was 5.5.
Yes, she's 5.
The babies were born.
Right. So she's 7.5 now. They're 5 years apart, 5.5 years apart. And we wanted to have them closer together, but we had Olivia naturally, but because we were having trouble having our second child, naturally, years were going by, we decided to get help.
And can you say how you found this doctor? Was it just through word of mouth, or, you know, how you chose this fertility doctor?
Yeah, we had actually gone to another fertility doctor years earlier just to sort of see where everything was for us. But ultimately, we decided to go to Dr. Moore because our friends had recommended him.
He came
to
highly
us.
recommended.
And we, you know, so we looked into it. We met with him, and you know, we felt really good about it because he was really, I mean, he seemed very bright, and he really seemed like he was going to be personally overseeing everything. It felt very personal. So anyway, that's why we picked.
Okay, let's go to our next question. It's coming from Margaret Carrero at KNX Radio LA. Go ahead, Margaret. Margaret, don't forget to unmute yourself.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Can you
we
hear
can
me
you
okay?
now. Mhm.
Okay, fantastic. I also am so sorry for what you guys have been going through and that you had to deal with this. Can you talk a little bit about kind of where you are in the bonding with your daughter now, with your biological daughter that you have? I'm understanding that it sounds like she's 2 years old at this point, kind of where things are in the bonding process, and with your older daughter as well.
Yeah, I mean, she's amazing. I think the bonding is there now. It's been a while. And she's very charming. She gets under your skin pretty quickly, you know. She's wonderful.
And we've all definitely, it was hard for a few months. The transition was the hardest, and the months after, COVID didn't make it easier. And there was a period of time because we switched the children in mid-January of 2020. And then by March, there was like this lockdown. I think that there was like a forced separation between the two families because we didn't know if it was safe to see each other for a while. And that was really hard at the time on both of the families, especially the moms. I mean, you can only imagine, but I think ultimately that was, in hindsight, kind of a blessing in disguise because it forced all of us into our nuclear families for like a month or so.
6 weeks.
6
It was
weeks.
6 weeks before.
No, who's counting?
Where I didn't get to see.
But yeah, anyway, that was hard, but I think that helped with the bonding, and ever since then, it seems to be we've fallen into just a natural, like she's our baby, and
yeah, she's definitely our baby.
It's nothing is going to replace that bond.
There's just this because we have something to compare to, because we have another child. There's a gap, right, of all this stuff that we missed.
Well, the trauma that we didn't have with the first situation, with the first one.
But yeah, she's amazing, and yeah, she's mommy.
Daphna and Alexander, could you perhaps speak on the other side of things to how it has been for your older daughter?
About in what respect? In the bonding?
The bonding and how your relationship with your older daughter may have changed as a result.
Yeah.
That's harder to talk about. Look, when this all unfolded for her, when we had to tell her what happened, as you might imagine, there were a lot of different emotions that she went through. But before, she was my buddy, my shadow. Like she She was our little,
We were a tight little family of three.
yeah. But once this happened, because she's so little, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like she lost trust in us. She lost that trust that she was going to be taken care of. Like, if we can mess up something so big like this, how could she possibly be safe? So
I also thought she had a lot of, maybe some anger.
she had a lot of anger.
She doesn't really since then, she doesn't really let us hug and kiss her a whole lot. And she's kind of retreated a little bit, but we're getting her as much support as we can. And we try to be as active and mindful on a daily basis with her as we can and support her. But it's been rough. Telling her at 5 years old that her sister actually isn't her sister, sorry, we made a mistake, or a doctor made a mistake, or whatever. That was the hardest thing in my life, I think, to tell her that. She didn't. How do you explain that to a 5-year-old?
I mean, I continue to struggle to get close to her. I mean, even last night and this morning, it's just, I don't know what else to say. It's just changed everything. And I'm really so scared for her, for the future, for her future.
She's going to be okay. It's okay.
I'm going to trust anyone.
She's okay.
She's a little girl who feels like she needs to.
Thanks, you guys. If it's okay, we'll go to our next question. It's coming from Hillel Aron at Courthouse News. Hillel, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, this is probably a better question for Adam. The lawsuit mentions this lab's extremely checkered past. Can you get into that a little more? What exactly do you mean by that?
Sure. Thanks for the question, Hillel. The lab has been accused of all sorts of misconduct in the past, the subject of lawsuits and such. It appears from those allegations that either the lab probably doesn't have the protocols in place that it must, or isn't following those. But either way, we're going to get to the root of what was happening at In Vitro Tech Labs, because we want to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
What have they been sued for, if you don't mind my asking?
Sure, and I'd be happy to talk with you separately
Okay.
on that.
That
But
sounds good.
Yeah.
And can you also just elaborate a little bit more? You said that lab mix-ups like this are becoming more and more common. Is that what you were saying?
Correct. I mean, my firm has represented hundreds of people who have been the victims of fertility center misconduct. And that misconduct runs the gamut from dropped embryos to misplaced embryos to creating embryos with the wrong eggs or wrong sperm, to the transfer of embryos to the wrong person, to doctors utilizing their own sperm in IUI procedures with their patients. The list goes on. And with all of this misconduct, with all of the victims that have come out of that, there have been life-altering consequences for everybody involved.
Thanks. Let's go to our next question. It's coming from Marissa Sarnoff at Law and Crime. And go ahead and
Hi,
unmute
can you
yourself.
hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thanks. Again, like other reporters, I apologize I'm so sorry to hear about what this has been like for you. And this also might be a question for Adam or for both of you. The first question, I'm trying to nail down kind of the timeline of what happened when I'm struck by the fact that there were 2 babies born around the same time. And I guess my question is, have you seen anything like that before? It seems very unusual to me that there would be 2 babies in such a terrible situation, but that there would be 2 at the same time. And my second question was, Adam, if you know, has any legislation been proposed so far, or any regulation been proposed so far to regulate clinics like this?
Appreciate the question, Marissa, or questions. The truth is that we don't know how often this happens. The Cardinales, uncovered this relatively early because the baby was of a different race from them. But how many babies are there across the country who are of the same race but genetically unrelated to the people who used IVF? We don't know that answer. In part, we don't know that answer because there are no databases that track this sort of thing. There are no reporting requirements of the clinics. And so when we are operating in such an unregulated state, it leaves the customers, the consumers, IVF couples in the lurch. They don't know where to turn. And so how often does this happen? Incredibly, we don't know the answer to that. Marissa, your second question, remind me what that was.
Actually, her first question. They were born a week apart.
Okay.
No, they were born
They were
exactly
born-
to the day, 1 week apart.
And the reason they both happened at the same time is because there was a direct switch. That's why they were 2 babies.
We still don't know the exact details. We don't know what mistake was made. We don't. I would love to know. I'd love Dr. Moore or In Vitro Tech to tell me what protocol was skipped or what safety measure was ignored that allowed their embryo to be put in our tube and our embryo to be put in their tube and then to be implanted and both babies to be delivered, healthy a week apart. That it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Marissa.
All right, and let's go to our next question. It's coming from Emily Sugarman at the Daily Beast.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for doing this, and I'm so sorry for what you're going through. This might be a better question for Adam, but do you know what the other couple is pursuing in terms of legal options, or if they are pursuing anything?
Yes, they also will be filing a lawsuit. It probably will be later this week, and their identities are going to remain private.
Well, as a reminder, if you have a question to ask, you may use the raise your hand function, and we'll unmute your line when it's your turn to ask a question. And I'm just going to keep checking right now to see if it looks like we do have a follow-up from Hello Roan at Courthouse. We'll go ahead and take that. Okay. Please go ahead.
Thank you. The clinic, did they offer to make this right in any way? Did they offer some kind of compensation?
I'll say that there are a couple of things. First, in direct answer to your question, nothing will ever make this right. No amount of money will ever make this right. We cannot go back in time and change what happened. There's no time machine to do that. There does need to be accountability, and through this lawsuit, we seek, among other things, some sort, an amount of money to compensate the Cardinales. And thus far, we have not been able to reach such a resolution, and so we're unfortunately in a place where we need to litigate this case.
So they have they made an offer?
I don't think I'm actually ethically allowed to talk about if there have been settlement conversations. But by the mere fact that we have needed to file this lawsuit, we have not resolved it.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so I'm not seeing any other raised hands, so I'm just going to reiterate that a recording of this news event and the related media materials are going to be online today. That's at lostembryos.com, lostembryos, no spaces.com. And to connect with the speakers you've heard from, or to get more info, you can contact Max Carlin at 703-276-3255. Again, that's 703-276-3255. 3255. So I'm doing one last check for raised hands and I'm not seeing any. So we're just going to go ahead and thank you all for joining this news event sponsored by the law firm Piper Wolf, Carr, Kane, and Conway. And that concludes today's news event. Thank you. Bye-bye.